So moving on. Okay, first of all, I have to talk about the effects. I cannot believe that as much CGI as was in this, and as much green screening as I'm sure was in this, it looks as good as it did. And really, there was one bad green screen shot, and it didn't last a full second. And that's, if you see it, it's Loki. It's in the battle section, like the third act, and he's flying around, and it's less than a second, but you can tell like the green screen behind him is really fake. But that was it. I don't like CGI. I don't like CGI, especially. It's become so pervasive in movies. Um, if you've seen the trailers for Men in Black 3, it's not CGI, but um, almost every shot in the trailers, even the shots that had no right doing this, were green screens, and really badly. Like the scenes of him in New York City were green screened. It's like, really, you can't go to New York and film? You're a Hollywood movie. But like CG, I I'm never connected to it the same way as I am with a real thing. I think practical effects are far more impressive. The example I always use is if they made Little Shop of Horrors nowadays, and they didn't have the amazing mechanics and puppetry going on, and I attribute that to Frank Oz, who did a lot of the voice acting for the Muppets, for the way that Audrey 2 works. The original plant was, like when it's a baby, was controlled by remote control by one person, and when it's a full thing, it was controlled by over 60 people, I think. And it looked very real. The only time when it didn't look quite right was when she's grabbing the original Audrey. You could tell Audrey's like acting, and it's especially when you consider every scene, and I think this is why if you count it, there aren't as many scenes with Audrey 2, were filmed in 3/4 time. So every song and every line regarding that had to be in 3/4 time for the live actors. And it doesn't look like that at all. And Audrey 2 looks really real and organic, and really, because it's really there. And if you just replace that with CGI, like a big green blob that you just sort of have to look at and use your imagination, I don't think it would be as effective, because it's not really there. And part of it is the way the actors interact with it, and part of it is your own suspension of disbelief, and part of it is just the physicality of it being there. And the CGI in this movie looked amazing. I sort of just like was swept up in it when the aliens come in at the end of the movie. It looked like they were there. And the portal looked amazing. The portal looked amazing when it opened up. It looked great when it was open. It looked great from our world. It looked great from the other dimension. It looked great in space. It looked great when Iron Man was falling through it, and it was great. All the creatures, the alien creatures, looked good. There was one shot where I could tell, besides the really bad green screen, I could sort of tell that they were on a green screen, but for the most part, I mean, I wasn't really paying attention, but usually I'm not paying attention and I see it. And I didn't see it except for this one other, two scenes in the whole movie. That's amazing for what animation is right now. So that was great. Visually, this movie is really good. Everything, even down to the costume designs, which were very true to the original comic books, I'm given to understand. And it kind of, it's so funny to me that they had 4 other movies before this, 4 other Captain American movies, and then there's also this one, and in each one, like, the one thing that they all have in common is they have to explain the Captain America costume. And because for me, if they didn't explain it, they just gave it to him, I would have been like, he's Captain America. Like, I've seen pictures of him before. And it's just like, he's a superhero. And he has a superhero costume. It's stupid looking, but Superman's is stupid looking too. Like, they're all kind of stupid. Some incarnations of the Batman are stupid looking, like, but they're superheroes. They're not supposed to look like everyone else, so, like, although I say they're stupid looking, it doesn't bother me at all, and I'm not like, that's stupid looking. It just is what it is. So like, I personally didn't care, but it just kind of cracks me up the way that they sometimes like it's just funnier that they're trying to explain it, like wave it off. Uh, there's that, and um, visually, each superhero looks very different, which is good. Um, None of them really look identical except for well, not really. They all look very different, and I think that that's great because they're all very different people. Um, so that's good. The filming was great, um, especially in the action scene. There were 3 times when there was a zoom correction, and that was okay. But every shot was clean. The only thing about the shooting that I didn't like was I didn't like any of the Dutch angles. I never really liked Dutch angles in general, and for me they just didn't work. But there were also a lot of really great scenes. And I know that they did this specifically for 3D, and I'm hoping that it looks just as good on DVD. And I actually don't like 3D that much. Usually it feels like a gimmick to me, and also it makes the movie darker, and it makes everything blur. Um, like I said, I saw the Spider-Man trailer outside of the IMAX theater, and then I saw it again in 3D. And there's this bit where Spider-Man is like swinging down into the street and back up again, and like you see the street and it looks like a roller coaster, you know. So it's like that same kind of look, and it was very real to me in 2D. And then when I saw it in 3D, it blurred really badly, and there was blurring here too. But because it's a superhero movie, and this superhero movie, I should say, because like the Batman series is not like this. It was very colorful, so the lighting wasn't as much an issue, but I didn't like the blurring as much. But they filmed a lot of things to where you really felt like you were there, and I've never had that with a movie before, 3D or otherwise, that really made me feel in it. If you see Loki in the glass cage thing, I love the way they film that. Every time they film with the glass, or around the glass, or through the glass, the way that they project Loki's reflection onto the glass, the way that they filmed with like this little crack in the front of the glass, like it was great. There were a lot of times that happened in spaceships too, or not spaceships, but like planes and jets and stuff that were great. And something that was really great was Iron Man. He, he has this helmet on, and he has the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, like little digital thingy, like right in front of his face. And when you see him and they've used this shot a lot, but I thought it was very effective. When you see like the inside of him, like you're looking at his face, and it's very close, and you see like the little digital thingy, like right here and right up here, and you see like it's really dark around him, and it's like pitch black, and the noise is muted, and like it's really close, and you really sort of feel like you're in his helmet in a good way. And yet I like that there weren't any like intense close-ups. I hate intense close-ups, and there was one at the very beginning of the film, but there weren't any real intense close-ups. Oh, and something I noticed, this is just a funny thing, it's not a bad thing, but girls have this trick when they're wearing makeup Scarlett Johansson had this in this movie too, of using white eyeshadow like in the corner of their eyes right here to bring light into their eyes. And because everything was pitch black around him, when he's in his helmet, Robert Downey Jr. has like the white eyeshadow in the inner corner of his eyes. And that was just like really funny. And not because like a man wearing makeup, but Robert Downey Jr. trying to lighten his eyes was kind of funny to me. But you wouldn't really notice it except for the fact that I just told you. It's not bad. It's not pervasive in any way. So everything was filmed, like shot, very well. Now more onto the story, and I guess acting and stuff. There was sort of a case with this movie for me of familiar faces, like how I said with Spider-Man, the new one, that it's nice that you don't have this name attached to these actors. They're just fresh faces, and they look like normal people. This movie does not have that because it has a lot of stars in it, and I did occasionally. What it is the girl who plays Robin on How I Met Your Mother is in this movie, and like I recognized her immediately, and I could place like who she was, but I didn't know where I knew her from because I kept trying to think of like Criminal Minds, or she kept reminding me of Brazil a little bit from Brazilian Isles, but it obviously wasn't her at all. But I kept trying to think it was like a drama series like that, and I couldn't place it until the end of the movie. But I kept thinking about that every time I saw her. There's a little bit of that. And if there are any J.J. Abrams fans out there, the place you know Loki from, and I got it really early because of he was wearing his helmet, but if he didn't wear his helmet, I probably wouldn't have figured it out. And you might not even believe me, because I went with someone and they didn't believe me. It's Sark from Alias, and he's older now, and they grew his hair out to where like it's this long and curled and slicked back and dyed black. But it's him. It's him. Like I could tell from his face, and he still has that slightly Malcolm McDowell type touch to him. It's in the eyes. He has like Malcolm McDowell eyes. He really reminds me of Malcolm McDowell now. But it's him. Like his voice, his face, his mannerisms, it's him. And I even checked his name in the credits. It's him. It's Sark. Which was a little confusing because, or not confusing, but I kept noticing that Iron Man's last name is Stark. And I keep thinking of Loki as Stark. But anyway, okay. The Avengers is a very special movie because, there are a lot of superhero movies out there. And I don't think that X-Men counts quite as much because X-Men are all in the same comic book title, sort of. So getting all the characters together is not quite as much, and you're not really gonna have a story. Well, they did, but it was bad. But in general, you're not gonna have a story about one mutant. It's the X-Men. In general, there was X-Men Origins Wolverine Adamantium Rage, which sucked. Not you know who he is. Not his fault. Hugh Jackman. Not his fault. He was great in it. He was one of the only good things in that movie. It was just the movie sucked. So like, there have been a lot of comic book movies about a comic book protagonist. Maybe his sidekicks, or usually his sidekicks too. But there's been like, I mean, there's been a lot. But now you've done that, and then you put them all together, and that's very special. And it was a very interesting movie. And if you've seen Batman the Animated Series, the older one with the theme done by Danny Elfman, with the very like really cool artsy style. I can't remember the name of the art style, but it's like the episode where all of the Batman villains get together and they play poker. It's just like that because you have all of these characters who are all so radically different and have such different origins and are culturally very different too. For instance, you've got Thor, who is from a different dimension, and then you'll have Captain America, who might as well be because his world was 70 years ago. Oh, I should mention, going into this, except for the Hulk, I know everyone's deal, more or less, because I know about that. Well, Black Widow and Hawkeye not as much either, but I know their deal going into it. So I know the story of Captain America. I know the story of Thor.